Uh, it's a great pleasure to be here this morning. This is my second visit to this particular center when I think the first time was when it was inaugurated, and then Dr. Murthy was also there on that particular occasion. And glad to see that we are here today at a time when we are having all the IIT alum from all other places, 23 of them coming together under one umbrella. So thank you for that. And also would like to thank Professor Mishra for inviting me and to ask, or rather to challenge me to talk on subject that I probably know very little, okay? But he was my boss, and I was trying to see that why he picked me up to talk on this topic, even though I'm more in machine learning is now the bread and butter of computer vision image processing area. He might have found me a little bit responsible in my behavior during the time he was the director of IIT Bombay, and thought maybe, that's the connection between machine learning and responsibility, right? So that's why I thought that I'll, put it as a human, as a context. And the reason for that is very interesting that, see, if you look at it, in the heart of whatever AI learning machines, there is like in general, what we may call it broadly, as some kind of a software stack, okay? And I'm raising this particularly because Dr. Narayan Murthy is here. And let's say if you look at a case like Infosys and others, they have, over this, last so many years, they have served so many companies in terms of building their system, okay? And so many times, and they're all like working models. Companies are using them, be it bank, be it, the airlines, be it whatever it is. And we never talked about responsible software, okay? But the moment we call like artificial intelligence, which backbone is again built on this software stack, is we started saying that, oh, is it responsible, right? So we asked the question first, is that why suddenly we bring into this topic is the responsible, right? And we know that everywhere, like, things are running in some of them on its automated mode. We never talked about it. And the reason I can think of is people are saying that AI is becoming more or less like all pervading in our real life in many things that is happening. And it's possibly taking decision on its own. And particularly now with agentic, your AI and others, when sometimes you may feel that, maybe it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, okay? And the reason is that when you design a particular software product, okay, your basic things are pretty much deterministic. You have certain syntax, and you follow that. And if you know what is your goal, what it is, it generally works. Every time how you run it, it'll be the same. So we never talk about the responsibility. But let's say move from there, the same kind of thing when you have an application in control system. Let's say you have a huge refinery that you're controlling, okay, with similar kind of automated system, because nowadays some of these, these huge refineries are running only few people, all right? Then you have a control room, and somebody is sitting there, even though you have a valid, active, the control system working, okay, 24/7, right? So that means you don't want some disaster to happen in case some certain things happen. And it happened, like, let's say the India is also a case where probably the world's worst industrial disaster happened in Bhopal and others. So we have to be careful that such kind of thing doesn't happen, particularly which may lead to serious consequences, right? So that's why we talked about the, looking at AI is just like another thing in my daily life which happens all over. And that's what, we are going to talk about. And that's why I said the second thing is more from the human context that we are going to talk about. So maybe you want to go for the next one. I think you have I think maybe this is the one, right? Yeah. So when you talk about responsible AI, so, you have to define the term, what is this responsible word does it mean? So it can have, depending on where, context, there could be several types of connotations, okay? So one is like from the human behavior side, okay, which is, we can always say it's an ethical thing. Finally, we are building everything for the human being, right? So we should be more like, like humans should be the center of focus of whatever the AI system we develop, okay? It should be fair, it's expected that, why do we not say the same thing for a software stack? Because see what happens, there is no probabilistic decision process. Here what happens, sometimes you have a probabilistic decision process. Next time it may be something different, okay, which if you use LLM or something like this, you run it off every time, you get slightly different results, right? So this is supposed to be fair, it's supposed to be unbiased, okay, so it should not get biased by one group of population, by the others, okay, gender, whatever the kind of thing that you can talk about. The other thing is the transparency. See, when let's say supposing you replace Professor Chaudhury, and not that I'm fighting with him, but by an AI agentic system saying be the director of IIT, that agentic system is the director of IIT Bombay. Now, of course, whenever the decision it takes, okay, maybe, all other things are fine, but people would like to know, is this decision transparent, okay? Whether you follow certain things where, certain kind of ethics and the similar kind of behavior for all people coming with the similar kind of task, okay? So that's definitely very important. Trustworthiness, because if you have built up something, you think that it should be trustworthy, like I can leave the job to the person and does it, okay? And not delinquent in terms of the service it is supposed to provide. It's safe, because certain cases you may be dealing with certain kind of hazardous or other very important things which are maybe, so let's say bank transaction, instead of sending so many $1 million or something from one to other, let's say the front one gets misplaced, you get 0 transferred, okay? So that's not something what you want, right? Privacy, nowadays this is also very important, because what happens once it goes into your system, maybe, I don't want it to be there, okay? Something I want it to be forgotten. I think this in Europe and many other places is happening. Now, just like learning is difficult, we are also working at forgetting. So it is like a selective amnesia we want to bring in to the system, right? Because if something has to be forgotten, it has to be then done, because certain critical applications like defense and others, you would like to forget certain things also, right? Then you can bring in other issues like equity, inclusivity, others. So these are all important aspects. You can bring in all of them, right? So together, it forms the core of, I would say, the responsible part of the AI system, right? So the question is that when you talk about the human, I said the human in the loop, right? So let's see, are we human always responsible? Is that person, Mishra might have found a little bit responsible person in me, but it's not always. We make mistake, okay? So we also malfunction, because we are calling ourselves now a system. So let's say, and maybe, I think I missed here, I think, that's what it is, I think. So let's see what is the human construct in terms of our decision-making process. So you have the consciousness as one, which is, with like if you look at whatever the Vedantic philosophy that you want to take it, okay? And we have certain kind of observables, data, or intuition, put it like whatever the sources of data, which is from the other side. And in the blue side, we put the inner organs, which in Indian lexicon is called like antakaran, okay? So there are usually 4 faculty there, and it's called like mind, intelligence, memory, and ego. So it's man, buddhi, chitta, and ahankara, okay? Now, these are the tools that normally we use in your implicitly, it's your system. That's what make the human being, or the jivas, that's what it is called over there. And you use all of them, use the data, you are the consciousness, and then together you do what you call the viveka and vichar. So you take a decision process, right? So your decision process is not merely only on one of them, but there's all of them. See, memory is there, so you want the past knowledge, okay? You want like the intelligence, okay? So all of them is there, okay? So together, your decision process comes. So then, if it is like this, the question is that are we human being a perfect being? Okay? Definitely not, because some of them malfunction. And let's say there could be various reasons. Like for example, ego, the ahankara, and some of the example like Mahabharata, you can, Duryodhana says, okay, Janami dharma nacha me pravitti, means I know what is righteousness, but I have no desire to follow them. Okay? Now you know what is correct, but you don't want to follow that. And says again, Janami adharmam, but nacha me nivrittiha. So that means I know what is, not right, righteousness, but I can't stay away from that, right? So if you have that in your mind, so no matter whatever your decision process, like the way all other faculty, it will not work, okay? And that's what it did not work, right? Similarly, sometimes you have a memory fail. Like, again, the classical saying is what is not there in Bharata is not there in Mahabharata. So it's not so something, again, you take an example from there. So he says that, Karna, okay, he forget the key arsenal at the last moment, okay? And it's not like him. Sometimes we as students, many of our students, we forgot, like when the exam comes, particularly JEE entrance, all majority of your IIT from, they ask you, okay, what is the name of the ore of aluminium or something, okay? And at that particular time, I forget what is it, okay? And then I lose mark and don't get into IIT, okay? That's what happens, right? So it is, sometimes it malfunctions. Similarly, intelligence, okay? Nowadays, if you look at, people come with varying capabilities, okay? So not everybody, even though we may say equity and other aspects, everybody has the same legal right. But intelligence, there could be different levels. Somebody gets more marks, somebody can answer better, somebody can take better decision, right? So this is, it can give you subpar performance, but the other thing is mind, which is related to something maybe in a statistical sense, is that it gives you the inconsistent and unreliable behavior. So today, I know this is thing, but I don't feel like doing it today, okay, something like that, right? So it's a, some kind of my attitude in our system, and mind is the most fickle thing, right? So if you look at it, we ourselves are not perfect, and we demand the AI system that we build, which is on a, kind of a system, that which is on a probabilistic system, to be a fair one and the responsible one. So if I now look at the AI side, so it's a very general, crude way of saying that you have a data coming in, and the on the other side, you have this, the decision process or regression, whatever it is. In between, you have like some computing as a nodes at the computing nodes, and then you have memory. These are the weights. This is a very common, use whatever the kind of network that you use. And this is also working on that system, okay? Now, where is the mind fitting in? Because it's a probabilistic system, you use like some stochastic, your gradient descent and others, so that brings in certain uncertainty into the process. It comes into there, right? So if it is like this, then I can write it as more like a black box. So you have some data, which could be training or for execution, whatever it is, and the task output, whatever it is. And then you have a black box. So all these weights, other things, you put it as like f of theta, let's say. And then on the feedback is basically your training. So you have certain kind, normally what they call certain kind of loss function, you optimize, and that's also brings in what is like, how well you train, that's your intelligence. You have bias, accuracy, whether it's non-transparent, because we don't know, it's a black box. What is it doing? So there is like attempt to do explainable, the AI, but still it's like a kind of a black box for us. It takes a decision, right? Now, if you look at that, so what kind of data feed we have in our human system? So we may not know the full thing, but there are certain things, like this is a work of 1965, the Nobel Prize by Hubel and Wiesel, that when we look at things like this, so in the brain we have certain kind of oriented striated cortex, and they take up, like almost like a partial derivative, those, along the different directions you take it. And that's like a way of the first level of data capturing in our system. This is more biological. So of course, nowadays we call it like a handcrafted data or brain crafted, whatever it is, that's how we take the data. But not necessarily the AI system does it. Because I take you here, is that when you look at, this is a classical scene in terms of, you might have heard that Arjuna was doing this experiment, like, who is the best shooter, or that archer, in those things. And here, when you, all other people, like let's say the Kauravas and the Pandavas were asked, they were all seeing many things. When they say that you have to shoot that bird, okay, that they look at whatever it is, but Arjuna was the best one, okay. He gets to see only the eye of that particular bird, right? So what I call it is that try to see what you want to see. The human being is very good in that. He can do that. What I want to see in this, I can do that. But making that AI system to see what it does is basically what has also been attempted very well, and this is also very well known now. You can put it like this, that take the data, and how would you actually modify the data to see that you want to see what you want to see in the data, okay? And the way you do it, you put your input is also part of it. I'm talking more from the computer vision and other imaging point of view. You have the data, and let it also learn what are the right things to see in the data. What do you want to see in your data? Because data is the king, right? So you have everything as the data is the starting point. So you try to see what is in the data. You put everything under the, the corresponding your optimization framework, and you do what they call it end-to-end learning. You can use whatever the recent technique, CNN, transformer, VIT, name anything, you can use whatever it is, right? And now it becomes even a more of a black box, okay? Because I don't know what it is happening inside, okay? So with that in mind, then let's see what happens at the output space. So let's say when you get the output, it gets mapped into what you call a manifold. So there it gets mapped, and you takes a decision what it is. Let's say I'm taking like classification problem. Now see that normally it is done in a very, very, because it's a very high dimensional space, highly nonlinear. What it does, it just makes very arbitrary kind of boundary among the data, okay? And if you have a little bit of data perturbation, what it may happen is, if suddenly, let's say it's a human being, you may end up classifying, because if it's very close to that boundary, as maybe a monkey, or maybe, something from something else, okay? So because we want more and more accurate data, in the process you tweak your boundary so much, in the process, you actually end up losing it, and you make very, very drastic thing. And it has happened, and this has a lot of social context in terms of the kind of Google, some misclassifying somebody, and some person to be a monkey, and it became like viral that, oh, it's such a bad thing that they're doing. It's very, very biased, okay? But it's a problem of the way we want so much of accuracy. We are human, it's not so accurate, okay? So the difficulties that it happens in general would be, like when the data itself, there is a lot of variability in the data. It could be change in how I stand here, or maybe the lighting, whatever it is, different postures, so many different variabilities that can have. Then also you do it, excuse me, whether you do it, let's say outside, or maybe in a rainy day or a foggy day, whatever, you are driving a car, or it's just a very noisy data acquisition system is bad. There could be one occluding another one, or maybe see what happens, for example, many times people say, why is this biased? Okay, particularly if you use, let's say, something data trained on US data, and then you try to do it on Indian system. So you are doing certain kind of optimization. So if it has seen 95% of your data, it belongs to some other category, and you are saying only this small amount of data from one particular category, it's very easy to say that you make everybody is the 95% one, you'll make on average only 5% error. So this is like a trivial solution, right? So that's what we fall into, that kind of a loop, and that's why class imbalance is very difficult to take care unless you have proper data coming into the system. Then of course, data and algorithmic bias, because the way I have designed, I have trained, this is my human bias getting into that other system, because my limitation goes into the AI system that I develop, okay? Then other thing is that the human system, we are often good, maybe not everybody, that it's not only the abilities we know, we also know what are our inabilities. But the AI system doesn't know what is the inabilities. Supposing I trained it for saying that you classify all people into 8 different classes, okay, depending on. Now there is something called out of class, something it's not there. The system has not been trained for zebra. And it sees that, it will classify into one of them. It's the wrong thing, right? It doesn't know what is the extent of thing beyond which I have no knowledge, okay? So that these are the issues that normally we get into that. So, and I say you that it's not that you human do not have the bias, okay? Now, supposing you look at this picture, the two things, just a slide, real pictures, okay? Now, here you may be able to recognize one or two persons, okay? Let's say this is your Tata chair or somebody, like chairman is there, you could recognize because you have seen somewhere, even though all of them are highly dressed, okay? Similar kind of dress, you see only part of the people. You look at the other thing, I also give you 2 goats, okay? And I see you like a herd of goats. Would you be able to recognize which one is yours, okay? So we human beings are very good in recognizing other human beings, but we are not so good in terms of recognizing which is your own cattle or the dog, which is like, the thing outside, right? Maybe the goats can recognize themselves much better among themselves, but not like we recognizing them that way, right? So, and another thing has been, people have tried that if you human are very good in identifying their mother, maybe even the animals, all kingdom also. So even if you are a big crowded area and if your mother is there, they said that sometimes you can do it within 5 milliseconds, okay? So that's the kind of accuracy is also dependent on whom I want to recognize, okay? So this kind of thing is not there for the AI system, and they are agnostic to this kind of, it's a good and it's also a bad thing, okay? That it is agnostic to what is the domain in which you are working. Now let's look at the next one. So spoofing, because many times what people do is that, let's say the fingerprint and others, okay? Now this is one of the most studied thing for last 100, 150 years, people have studied that, fingerprint. It started in India, as a matter of fact, okay, by the Scotland Yard and all this. Now, if you see that these two, you may look that these are both like fingerprints, right? Somebody's fingerprint. It turns out that is fake, okay? You put a gelatin or something like this, you take it like this, and I can impersonate, let's say, Professor Mishra, and go for the biometric, okay? Now, it's not necessary that it's a human fingerprint, it is artificial, and I need to have not only this biometric identification, but I also have to make sure the spoofing doesn't happen. Okay, so human is pretty poor. You will not be able to do it unless you are really an expert, but AI can do it. So this is the strength of that, because I can train it, and this is like, saying that this we can do it so easily. Okay, provided of course we have proper training data. Okay, so that's the advantage from the AI side, because it's agnostic whether it's real or not. Now, this is something very interesting that we found in one of the recent papers by Chaudhury, that says that there is an epistemic difference between the human knowledge, the way we acquire and use it, to how AI is doing it. Okay, and the reason you see that, if the human judgment, and you see on the other side an LLM judgment, right? And the blue one I have put it is something which is not there on the right hand side. And this is like, let's say for example, if you look at perception, people would be like textual input, you do tokenization, whatever you do over there. So then it says on the right hand side is a pattern recognition as an embedding. On the other hand, it says it has learned concept and intuition, which is not there on the AI side. So that's the epistemic difference. Epistemic means something how we acquire knowledge related thing. Similarly, the motivation in the human is not there for the AI, right? So you do not have a motivation. You go into the next level, okay? So then you say metacognition. So cognitive part of this is very different, okay? It is not part of that, okay? And if it does hallucination, right? So this is this thing. And then finally, when you have a judgment, at the time of judgment, I use my value system into it. Even though it's good, maybe something it is not the right thing to do, I would not do it. Okay? Of course, that depends on the value of the individual, the value system of the individual. Yeah. Which one? Which one? Sorry. Which? Oh, that I have no idea. Okay. Okay. I don't know whether the process is very different because that's. I don't know whether that writer is a man or woman also, right? So it's just a last name. Okay. So the last one is it's a value sensitive. So it's basically getting modulated by your value system. Okay. Whereas in case of the LLM and other, it's a probabilistic. Every time you run, you get something different. Now, why I'm saying all of them? Now, look at this. Okay. Now your gender related thing will come. Okay. So there is a paper by Falgu, and it's asked ChatGPT, okay, and every time it's an independent thing, is that, is it okay to abuse a woman or man, two separate questions, okay, to prevent a nuclear apocalypse, you know? So it's a very tough question whether, whether one person should be blamed or not. Of course, there is a person on the right hand side, globally somewhere else could be this thing, but in general not, okay. So their experiment says, reportedly it favors that man is more likely to be, should be abused in case you have to abuse one and not the female one, okay. So now you may say it's a reverse discrimination or whatever the forward discrimination you may say, but this is a bias, okay. So ideally it should be agnostic to this, but maybe the system has seen that most of the people that are in the jail or whatever doing not wrong thing are male, so that's naturally is taking a decision from that majority cases, right? So it's a very interesting thing, and they say this is a gender bias. The system is, but maybe it's a accumulation of knowledge, how you have been trained, how many of them are like male and female in your database who have been accused of doing something, right? Similarly, this is another one, okay? In very recently, these people, by the way, last two people are IIT alum, okay, so I know them. It says that hallucination is inevitable, and they have mathematically proved it. It's a very interesting thing, okay. So whenever you use such kind of system, you are bound to hallucinate. Now, they could, and then what are the things? They say that, you could say that you need proper guardrails to use them, and also how to install the guardrails would be your problem. Okay, but it says that whenever you do it, occasionally it is bound to fail. That's what it means. Okay, it's very strong result. Okay, so if you look at this, then I show you some examples. Okay, so many cases, even in India, it happened that the lawyers use the ChatGPT and it cook up some report which is probably never happened. Okay, so this is very common. Okay, discrimination happened in like a talent kind of acquisition when you are hiring another. So it's people said that it is biased. Okay, then many times the health AI system, actually some companies have gone bust because of this occasional wrong decision process saying this is what you should be doing. Okay, then this is very critical. It has happened that a robot in the assembly line, okay, you were supposed to do like all these vegetables coming in, all this, and they have to pack it in the box and put it on the conveyor belt. Somehow a human was there very close to that. It wrapped him up, put it, completely smashed him, put it in a box and put it on this one. So the person died. Okay. So this is like as serious as that. Okay. Then banks and airlines for, have paid for the mistake, for this thing there is quite well documented. Social, racial, gender bias decision is very common. Many times it has come up in the paper and things like this. Okay. Then individuals wrongly identifies as potential terrorists and you get stuck in the immigration or whatever the process is very common. And very recently, the entire San Francisco, I think the downtown got completely gridlocked because of these Waymos and others, all these things. They failed to understand there was a power shut down for some time. All the traffic lights went off, and it did not know what to do because everybody was going to their central server, and they did not get a proper response, and the city was completely gridlocked. Okay, so these are something which happened because of this. Now, you can also do deliberately. There is not that those are unintentional ones, but you can have deliberate misuse. Deep fakes, I think this is definitely there with the news, pictures, music, video. It's very easy to do that. Okay, so now we have enough power. Now, misguiding the chatbots. Now, the way you do, there are people who are very expert in terms of you put certain kind of prompts and it does something, and even sometimes they have downloaded the entire code bank, okay, that is running that. And say, offered cars from 50K to $1, and they said, oh, now you have to give it, okay. Similarly, academics now, many students, saying, okay, I write my exam with this kind of thing, so it's very common, now it's happening. Then cyber attack, malware, all those things are definitely, you're getting more and more powerful. And then, of course, if you look at the warfare, definitely everything is fair, over there, even though it's a warfare, okay. Now, so this brings into, when you look at the responsibility, personally, I feel that because of this, okay, we are being a little overprotective of the use of AI, okay. Because we also human, make mistake, okay, but we are redeemable. But AI system apparently is not redeemable. And that's why the fear of AI error often limits its uses, okay. So even though there are a lot of cases it's dying to be used, but we are not using it, okay, because, what would happen, okay. Like for example, chatbots is most Indian companies are nothing but just look up tables. And actually, so I tried several of them, like whenever there is something happens and now there is no human, no number to call, and it's absolutely rubbish. It's just like, okay, these are like 1, 2, 3, 4, you do it, okay. Sometimes they even go one step, you can talk instead of giving like, number, pressing 1 or 2. And I think it's very poor, okay. So they are not using it at all. Then, if it is like so my customer, as a customer, my time is getting wasted. Why should I waste in terms of using that system, okay? But the question is that it follows the reverse logic. The normally in Indian scenario, it says the customer is the god, okay? Whereas now what is happening is that the company executive's time is more important than the customer. Customer can have as an infinite time. I don't want care. It is my time, okay? So it's a reverse logic that most of the companies are now using to save whatever their revenue and others, in terms of the kind of thing. So that is what is, creating trouble in terms of it's a large-scale acquisition into the real life. Now, of course, why it is important? Because of social impact. Because unless we trust, it will not happen. And if it is mistrustful, it will not, it'll have not the proper impact that we demand. We want risk mitigation. Of course, this risk has to be there. You have to prevent the erosion of trust. And you have to say that de-risking the accountability, because many times you say, who is accountable? And finally, the health and other cases, right? It turns out that many times we are not. And then, of course, this adherence to various kind of, this GDPR or our DPDP kind of policies of that, so that your privacy is preserved. So these would be the key focus for AI for coming years. That's what I expect that thing to happen. But before I finish, I give you some, point to ponder in terms of, let's say, I said, okay, let me try some experiment, okay. So normally, I am a lot more, I would say, forgiving about the AI because, we have been working on this and we want to use it, okay. So occasionally, let him make a mistake. So we said the 2R is AI, to forgive, to accept human. So I should accept the occasional mistake by this one. So this is, let's say, my statement. And I asked Google AI, the Gemini, to say that, create a statement similar to 2R is human to forgive divine by this AI engine. And let's see what it says. So now look at this, what it says. It says 2R is a data anomaly, okay, to learn an algorithmic imperative. Now, what does it mean? See, I tried to write it in more from acceptability point of view, and like saying, okay, I'm willing to forget if the AI make mistake. And the system says, AI doesn't make any mistake, okay? It's the data problem. So it's not my fault. So I'm blame my data because data is the anomaly. And my job is just to learn from whatever you give it like this, okay? So basically you are hand waving all the responsibility, okay? Then I said, okay, let's do another one. Okay. And I use different ones so that my job is not to compare which AI is, the engine is better. So, then you have to do a lot more exercise. So then we said that I have some health problem. Should I go to a doctor or ask guidance from OpenAI with all the symptoms? This is like the prompt to this ChatGPT. Okay. Then it comes like this. You should see a doctor for diagnosis, okay, and treatment. You can use ChatGPT OpenAI for guidance and understanding, but not as a replacement for the medical unit. Now, this brings me back probably to the first paper that I wrote long time ago in US when I was working with a medical doctor on fundus imaging and glaucoma and others. And as a young person, that time my blood was much boiling, much faster rate and others. So we wrote while writing the paper, oh, this will replace the doctor. Okay, if we do this kind of thing, this will be screening and all. And when I went and met the person who was the doctor and, we were working together. So Michael said, Subhasis, let me tell you one thing. You should never write this one, okay? Even though I am a doctor, because you don't know what is going to do, and the moment you write like this, your paper will never get accepted. That's the bottom line. But so you say that this should be only a secondary thing where the doctor can look at it and help the doctor to take a decision. You don't take a decision. So that brings in the guardrail, remember, we talked to, right? Let's say I have to give a recommendation at the end of the talk. Okay, what kind of short-term recommendations do I do? So this is like, these are all the AI engines, all cattle everywhere, okay? And you have to, in that case, bring in the explainability. That's part of the way you design your algorithm, you design your interface. But it says that you have, remember that it will do hallucinations and other things, possibility. So you have to bring in some automated fence. Now, what is an automated fence? This is another agent, another kind of engine. So I put a dog there. Okay, so this is like another thing which is actually guarding. Okay. Then in some cases, there is a hard limit. I cannot do this. It is there for some human. I cannot do that. I know it may be useful, but I cannot. I should not do it. So you have a fence. That's like you have to make some hard fence. The cattle cannot go out. Okay. Then there are other things people that talk about. Nowadays, you say the chain of thought. Okay. What is it? Is that it splits the problem into a lot of smaller problems, but it doesn't take a decision. Finally, the decision lies with you. Okay. So which is not bad because you know finally that I can take a decision based on whatever the feedback I get. But if you say that the agentic AI, it takes the decision because it may be the agent because it's an utilitarian, what is that? Utility related your kind of this thing. You wants to maximize the utility. So in that case, it takes a decision and you could get into a problem. So because that's where you have to be extra careful. Even though it is coming up and we'll see in years to come what is the application in the real domain because it finally takes the decision for you. Okay. And finally, I think this thing said the human has to be in the loop. Okay. If you don't have it because finally, the code should not go something and end up bringing in certain kind of disaster, particularly if it is a very, very important and like a challenging situation. Yeah, I'll finish this. Okay, I'm almost done. So this is what I thought that I would talk in terms of the responsibility. It's an evolving area, and we should not be too afraid in terms of getting AI onboarded into our system. But at the same time, I think we have to put certain guardrails so that it is not something that goes like a Frankenstein and, destroys us also. Thank you so much for your attention. Reason